sustainability of the model and working through what this actually looks like, trying to answer some of those questions. A lot of people were asking why, what was the history behind it, where we are, why we are today. And again, this is a small enough group that please just call out, ask questions. This is one where what I'm putting up in front of you is the generic overall structure. So if I was to say this is the outline of how some things can work. And then what we'll do after that is we will actually go into some work sessions. We're going to take an actual class of 4th grade and class of 5th grade and figure out how to do some of the groupings so you can see how some of that thought process goes in on the most basic level. And then we can talk about how we get into some of those more integrated skills and how we actually divide out some of the students and how the supports would happen within a multi-age classroom structure. So again, this is the time in which I'd love to clarify anything. If I am not answering a question, if you feel it was too vague, do not hesitate to push a little further, dig a little deeper. I want to make certain you're walking away with the understanding you need. Understanding does not mean agreement, so please know that's okay, but this is where I want to at least be able to show some of the forethought that has gone into this, what these look like, and what we are proposing. So this is the scheduling preview. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce what the daily schedule would look like, again, in a very broad view. Then I'm going to drill it down a little bit, and I'm going to show, well, this is what it looks like with a special schedule. Then we're going to drill down a little bit more to talk about then what happens with teacher planning time within this structure. How do we make certain that the teachers can come together and actually work through some of the challenges that we've given them time? Because one of the things that we're selling is that this is about the collaboration. This is about multiple eyes on students in order to make better decisions for their educational needs. And then to also go down to say, what is happening within the content within each one of those areas? So what happens in there? What are some of those sections that happen even within a single grade level? If we were having these, if it was just 1st grade, what happens in a just 1st grade class, and also what happens when it's a kindergarten 1st grade class. And so we'll have that conversation. But most of the time that we're going to be spending today, we really want to do where we're playing with a couple of different ideas, teasing out, using actual data that has been redacted, so the student's name are attached to it, but you can start to see how this actually flows when you're looking at students' abilities. Again, the model is designed that we're looking at the student's ability, the student's needs as an individual versus saying, well, all 1st graders need to do this. It's starting to say, what does this 1st grader need to do? So, in your packet you will see a typical daily schedule. So 9 o'clock our classes start. That's pretty typical now. All of our grade levels right now would start with a morning meeting. That's very typical where they talk about what's going on. This is part of a responsive classroom model, making certain that children have the ability to be heard, work on their communication skills, establish norms for the day. Then at 9:15, our kindergarten 1st graders would do reading. Science and social studies would be happening concurrently with our 2nd and 3rd, and math with the 4th and 5th. And you can read down, and if you notice, no 2 content areas are happening at the same time. The reason this will be is because we have that push and reading teacher that will be working with the kindergarten 1st grade from 9:15 to 10:45. Then they would move to 2nd, 3rd grade, and then they would move and end the day with 4th and 5th grade. So that we can see all the way down, and again, math doing the same. Trying to also strategically place where those times are happening for each child. So we recognize kindergarten and 1st grade, the mornings tend to be more productive academic times for our little guys. After lunchtime, having lessons that are a little bit more hands-on, that they're doing more movement is better for our little guys. So that's why the design was that way for that. And then moving through and seeing again, 2nd and 3rd grade. Now from 2:30 to 3 o'clock, right now we said UA, so Unified Arts, Character Counts, but that also leaves us the opportunity that that's an enrichment block. And right now we're working with our gifted and talented teacher BJ Hosking, and he's actually very excited about some of the designs we have that are coming up, where we have ordered Lego robotics for our elementary schools. So we have had opportunities where we can look at some community efforts where students will actually be able to go in and do competitions within. And that provides that time consistently across the school, where if we want to start doing some whole school community building, some showcase activities, some things that will really start to build us up to say this is what unifies us as Ruth, the opportunity would lie in that time. I'm not going to say, let's not pretend, there may be a fire drill in here one day, there may be times where it's not completely out, but this is where on a perfect day, this is how we map out. So the question comes, who is in the classroom?
How does it, I have no idea what the current day is like. How does that compare, like, time-wise to how much time did you spend on reading and math?
It is very comparable to what they have. So the only difference is that we chunk the time so that way it's together. Sometimes what we may do is the teacher, it does take away some teacher freedom. So right now a teacher may do a little bit of reading,
right,
pop in the math, and then go back to the reading. This would really keep them to that schedule because that's when we have some push-in and supports that.
And have you found, if they do something similar for an, have you found anything with like the attention span to do math for an hour and 15 minutes, like that works, or?
I'm going to say to you, you don't just do straight math for the hour, as far as it is not time on the paper, it's not just, turn the page. It really is where you give them, here's the content. They may be doing the fast facts. It's got a different meaning than sprints. Sprints, thank you. They then would be going and they may be doing work independently. They may be working in small groups, working with manipulatives. So there is movement that needs to happen, and given the age of the students, it should be adjusted for that, but I can tell you it is not an exorbitant amount of time.
Not like a timer goes off. Beep. I mean, they're going to be moving in between.
They're going to be moving, but I will tell you, as far as the reading teacher, they're going to know. Somebody is counting on them in the next one, so this is going to be time management, absolutely. Great question. So, who's in the classrooms with the students? So, if you notice, in the first one, we had what was the morning meeting. So I just have that in pink, just so you can see who's in with them. Then for the next one, I'm going to move it up. That was reading, so everything in yellow is reading. Everything in blue is math, and then green is science and social studies. But the part that I want you to see is there is never a time a teacher is alone in the classroom. There is never just a singular adult in the classroom. And I know part of the nerves of this is the management of the students and how this works. So in our kindergarten and first grade class, you have the teacher, K1, and then you have the reading teacher. The reading teacher during the morning meeting is not going to be assigned to anywhere else. There's not a reading time. So knowing that they're starting their day at 9:15 in the kindergarten and first grade classroom, they'll be in supporting the teacher before we have the tutor coming in at, I think we have the reading tutor who comes in at 9:15. The teacher's not alone. There's going to be support there in the morning so that way when they're getting on their jackets, it's not one person against the world. We will have the multiple adults within that classroom. If you notice during the reading time, now we have 3 adults in that classroom. So if we're working with different groupings, we can have more intense time with that adult, with the ability grouping they're working on. One group, we can have 4 groups. One of them may be working independently. We can rotate them through. It may be a little bit more of the workshop model where some of the kids are reading. And this allows 3 of the teachers to go and have conferences with the students and see how they're doing, tracking their reading progress. And when they transition and they go to math, if you notice, the reading teacher is then swapped out with a math teacher, but the kindergarten and first grade teacher and the tutor remain the same throughout the entire day. Then going into science and social studies, again, we have the K1 teacher, you have the tutor, and we will have a science teacher who pushes in on Mondays and Tuesdays, and that science teacher is also our tag gifted teacher. So working with the students and making certain he's getting those teachers to do those enrichment activities as well, pushing our students forward. And then we have the end of the day, and it is the kindergarten first grade teacher and with the tutor. So again, getting the jackets on, we have multiple hands, making certain that everybody is together, that the management is there, because I think that's, again, As far as management goes, we have many hands doing light work. So again, when you go down to second and third and fourth and fifth, you see it carries through. Now the other thing underneath, and I did put, we do recognize we have special education paraprofessionals that are in our classes. We have 4 special education paraprofessionals that are assigned to Booth Free School. And right now, the students that they work with are in the second, third, fourth, fifth grade levels. So they will have those bodies that are there as well. Which also means that at sometimes if we're starting to say, oh my goodness, we really don't need to have at some point 5 adults sitting in the classroom with the 23 children, we can also say, oh, you know what? That's a day we'd like to take the educational assistant, move them over to one of the classes in kindergarten because we're doing some testings on phonics and we don't want to have paper and pencil, we just want somebody to listen to the child. Here's where I can better utilize that staff member. So again, this is where we're talking about some of the flexibility and how we can ebb and flow with some of the staff and utilizing the resources because one of the comments that was made was, how can we do more when we have 2 less teachers? And I think one of the things we need to look at this is it's more about not as an equation, but about a surface area. When you spread something so thin, you're trying to do too much, but when you start to reduce the size of the container and bring everybody in together, you have the ability to go deeper versus just skimming the surface. And that's what we are able to do, and we're able to ebb and flow and be flexible because, in fact, we can see what's actually in the classrooms. Again, this is a generic view. I'm going to also say there are going to be some tough days in kindergarten early on. We know that, and so we know that we may have to pull some of the resources over and push that support over there. But on a generic day, this is what it looks like. Does anybody have concerns with what that looks like?
I just have a couple of
Please
questions.
do.
So, I see the 5 teachers up there.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of 3 questions. So who up there besides where they have teacher on their name are the certified teachers? You're using tutor, is that what we call our interventionist?
No,
Right
reading
now?
teacher and math teacher.
Right.
So reading teacher, math teacher would also serve if there's intervention needs.
Okay, so we currently have a math interventionist.
We have a reading math interventions.
Okay, so, where is, I don't understand who the tutor is, and I'm the ed assistant. Is that what we currently call a paraprofessional?
So there are special education paraprofessionals and
Yep.
there's ed assistants. Typically, we group them when we say they're the paraprofessionals.
Okay.
But we do have paraprofessionals who are not assigned to specific children due to IEPs, and
Right.
that is called an ed assistant.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to see, is that what I'm capturing at the bottom, the 2 paraprofessionals are assigned based on students with special needs.
Right.
The educational assistant is really the paraprofessional to support the classroom, so
Right.
they are not identified. The tutor itself, right now, we have reading tutors that are in the school. We have got 2 of them within the school. That doesn't change, we just now actually have them go and stay in the classroom working with kindergarten first and second and third.
We're fortunate though too, that those 2 tutors are certified.
Right, and that's what I thought,
They're
that's one
not
of the pluses to
considered-
the system.
Yeah, it is a plus. In addition, both those tutors are now received really intense specialized training in reading, so can work with students who might be a little bit struggling. So the beauty part about this is we are putting the tutors in K1 and 2-3, so that if I need more support with one-on-one or small group, I can pull that other person in there during a small portion of that time.
Okay. So really what we're looking up there is, while in official name, there's 5 teachers, but because Booth 3 has already built the capacity, we're really talking about 7 certified teachers who will be working in the
They're
building.
not teachers, so we have
No, but they have certification.
certified people.
Right. So 5 teachers plus
Plus
Booth
2.
already has this capacity, plus 2 teachers. I know they don't have that official title, but they have the lessons, they are teachers. Okay, so, and that's, I think what people's concern was, like, we actually already have this capacity that maybe we just don't know about, because we know that there are these people that work in the building and they're wonderful. Oh, by the way,
Pull in and push out.
they're also certified teachers who have the same training that our official classroom teachers have.
How does this affect the interventionist's ability to do the one-on-one intervention that?
Actually, so what should happen is that the first 30 minutes where it's the direct instruction should be sacred time. Then as we're doing the grouping, the tier 2 intervention should be happening either within the classroom or they can pull them to a separate area, but that's occurring during that reading time itself. One of the things we have to be incredibly specific is no student misses out on tier 1 instruction. It's that support thereafter. So during some of the independent work time students are doing, that's when the reading teacher can work if there's time and if it's something that we said during the intervention block of time, are able to pull out that child if there's needed additional support. So that's all happening within that reading block that's given, that 90 minutes of time. It may be that the other teacher is working with writing with the other two and then pulled out to do the reading. That would ebb and flow, but it would happen within that 90-minute block.
Maybe it's the next one, but I see a lot of math and art, music and art. Is PE included still?
Yep, and we'll talk about all of those when that's really talking about an example of a prep time. I'm going to get into that. We can go back to this slide as I go, so please, just say going back to. So what I did was I gave you an example of one day. So let's say this is a Monday. And on a Monday, what a daily special would look like is we would have art and music, and then flip music and art. Now, we could keep this smaller for our art and music teacher, because again, I'm not reducing any specials time within the school. What this also does is if I use this example on a Monday, notice all of the specials are during the blue time. That means that the math teacher and the classroom teacher have time to be together planning. For intense planning to support the students, have that conversation, plan out what's going to happen the rest of the week. So we want to build in some of that planning time with them. On Tuesday, when we have PE and, I'll give you another one, PE and computers, we would do that on the yellow time. So that way the reading teacher and the classroom teacher have the ability to meet together. Then what we would do, then when it's a day in which say it's a Friday, and I only have like a maker spaces that's happening on that day, then at that point the teacher's not meeting with anyone else, but we're getting their prep time. So we want to at least schedule one large block of time, and if you notice, 2 40-minute periods. 80 minutes of planning time is a lot of time to talk about the children that are in that class together each week by design. So this is just an example of one day. Again, we'll map it out. I can tell you, and I think one of the things that Kathy said, where I put everything separately together, she said, oh my gosh, but Mr. Morgan keeps saying he wants more kids in the gym. They want to do these combined things. He would have the ability to make that decision and talk to the other teacher who he's working with on that day to say, do we want to see if we have them combine that day? Do you want to separate it out? We have designed for individuals so that way the management for the specials teacher is able to be maintained. But we have the ability, if they do want to pull them together, they can do that within that grade level. So we start to look, again, this is where the flexibility comes. I can design it for something like this, where I've given everybody the individual time, but it allows it where, you know what, we may want to put them together, and we can do that.
So do the specials rotate through then content areas every day, so that one day they're missing?
There's only one day a week that they would miss a chunk of their reading time. And
Right.
Because that's when we've got state mandates on how many minutes they have to get per week. But so that would really be the only one day a week that they would have that.
Right.
But then beyond that, yes, you do want to rotate it so you're not hitting the same one every time.
And then is there any content area dedicated to writing or?
Writing would be, so going in, so
Okay.
look, it's quite a, so looking down, during reading time, if you notice, what I did is in drilling down what happens within reading time. In first and kindergarten, you have Foundations. Foundations is a phonics-based program. It aligns with our Reader's Workshop. They have the Reader's Workshop. If anyone, the model with Reader's Workshop is that the teacher models the learning that's going to happen. So whether or not they're focusing on character development or plot, the teacher would give that lesson to the entire class, and then they would work based on their reading levels. And so they may have different books they're working through. You want to know what is their push point, what is their frustration point, and all of that information we gather throughout the year. And then that's where writing does happen. So it would be within the reading time. Not to say we should be doing things across content areas. So during our science and social studies time, that's 90 minutes. It's great when they're going to do a science lab till 90 minutes. That is an absolutely ideal, wonderful opportunity. They're not going to be doing science lessons every single day. So to know that one of the things that they can be doing is they can be writing about the science. You can be developing their skills through that genre. You can also be having them read historical fiction. You can have them going through biographies. That can be happening during our social studies time. So those are also the other opportunities to push in some of that learning that needs to be happening. And if you notice, Foundations is happening in kindergarten first, second, third. It is not in fourth and fifth grade. That actually, if a student is getting phonics at that point, it's during an intervention time, and that's where, to speak to your point, during that 90 minutes, that would be an intervention, probably in a different area. For math, the beautiful thing about our math program, we have decided to go kindergarten first, second grade. We'll be adopting the math program we're currently using in third, fourth, and fifth, which I have to say is a little bit of a situation, because when somebody asked me what was going to happen with the two different programs, I did not really have an answer for that one. And as we've done the pilots, the teachers have found the new math is more rigorous. They found the students are taking on more challenge earlier on, so we have decided that we're going to adopt that. So looking at what's going to be happening within the math time, they will be doing their math fluencies within the sprints. They will be doing concept development. They will be doing skills reinforcement. They should be doing modeling that's happening. They should be doing word problems. All of these things within that 90 minutes time. They should be up and moving. 90 minutes of math can be deadly to anyone, so it should be that they are doing center-based learning. It should be that you're working on a concept and you have reinforcement centers happening around your classroom. So if I'm reinforcing with one group, I may have another group working independently on coins, another group working independently on place value, another group working independently on fractions. There should be multiple stations that are happening around for that reinforcement, because we want to keep up those skills. And sometimes just moving the students through those centers also allows for those movement breaks that we want to see. In science social studies, we talked about NGSS stands for the Next Generation Science Standards. This is really one of the reasons when we were talking about science and social studies, and originally we had talked about the fact that there was going to be that chunk of time. We also recognize that science is building upon itself now. And so in talking with BJ Hoskins and finding out with his schedule and working with his schedule, we're finding his opportunities where now he will be able to push in at least a couple of days. But we also want him doing much more with enrichment and gifted opportunities within that half hour at the end of the day. So if you want to meet somebody who's very excited about this opportunity, he sees this as really that chance to start creating more dynamic work for enrichment. And we talked about the end of the day, and I just put character, but the students do work on second steps. They do enrichment, and one of the things that we said was that it's also test prep as needed. So that's the question. I know when people say, you have a second grader, you have a third grader, what's going to happen when we get to test time? And that would be the time in which that's happening. And because of the fact we're going to, number one, have multiple teachers in that classroom, we can have them separated out. That may be a time in which they have to be separated out by grade in order to make certain they're prepared. But it also is a time when we can come together when we're talking about things like character counts, talking through some situations that may have happened on the playground, and problem solving. All of that is very flexible at the end of the day. So questions when it comes to that? Yeah, Julie.
I feel like a kindergartner asking this question.
I like
What
it.
about like morning recess and stuff? Would do teachers have flexibility for like extra recesses and things for the especially for the younger children?
For everything wholly, they do. Because at some point, this is a basic structure where I can say, here's how we educate children. During this structure, people better realize we have children. If anybody takes this and ignores the fact that they need movement, then at that point I'm going to say, well, they are way too rigid and we should not have them. We should be responsive to the kids. And there are some times when you're sitting there and you realize, you know what, we need a movement break, we're going to go take a tour around. I don't care if you missed 5 minutes of reading because we need to lighten up. Or, and especially early on, I'm not thinking kindergarten and first grade within all of September are going to do 90 minutes. I think we build up to the 90 minutes. Quite frankly, we're going to have a reading teacher who's going to do some recess or some of this too. Because I also want that reading teacher to watch how that child is playing and interacting on the playground. I want that reading teacher to know them as much as the homeroom teacher, because we need to know who they group best with. We want to know who the preferred friends are. We want to know the kids who need that extra push in order to start creating some groupings. These are the things that we start to see organically on playgrounds and during that free time.
As he gets down, if we get down the line, what are some gifted and talented options that he's going to bring into the fold? Anything from projects to like writing our own short story to, I mean, is it really unlimited, or is there some guidelines, and would he begin to share that before the school year?
Things that right now I know he's been looking into. He has been talking a lot about coding.
Okay.
But we've also talked about things like creating micro-societies and creating opportunities for students to, during makerspace time, create goods that they may sell, during something that feels like a community event, and whether or not booth has its own booths to sell things at. So when I say to you, no, we have not defined that time as of yet. One of the things we do want to make certain of, it's not just building up their mathematics. Mathematics is not gifted. We want to make certain they are better writers. We want to make certain how they express themselves. All of those things. So presentation skills. Those are all enriching opportunities.
He likes to tap into their interests also, so he usually does some interest inventories with the kids that he has. So whether he continues with that, I suspect he will, but I'm sure he's going to bring in other ideas.
Free TED Talk?
But I think those are things our students should learn to do. TED Talks are having the student understand how there's a thread to their conversation. If you're going to teach somebody something, don't go too far on a tangent. I'm horrible at that, so just as a heads up. Don't go too far, and you want to be able to pull it back. What is the thread line? And those are important skills for our kids to know. Sometimes we can get lost telling our own stories. Getting our students to do that. There's not a lot of time during some of the hardened curriculum to do that, but in a half-hour day, you can start to really open up that opportunity. Other questions about the structure of the day? Things that you're thinking of that are still coming up? All right, you guys are very polite. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the tables on you. We're going to have, there's 3 tables here. I'm going to pick a table that you're going to go to. I'm going to give you a group of students. These are actual scores. I have saved the identity of our children, so at this point we want to make certain that there is not any telling information. However, I have given you the information in the most basic form. They are reading at the first number is the grade level. After the decimal point, it is the month within the grade level. So if it is a 6.7, it is 6th grade, 7 months. And you have an actual classroom that exists within Region 12. The pink are your 4th graders, and the purple are your 5th graders. And your job is going to be looking at just their reading to group the students into 5 groups. We're taking 4th and 5th graders, and we're just going to look again at the most basic of information. Now I'm going to say to you, when we're actually grouping students, we look at more than just what grade level they're looking at. Actually, we typically take away grade level because we hate that. We look at interest, because you're going to try a little harder based on the interest that's on. We're going to look at what are the skills within each one of these grade levels so we can really see, because just because you're working at a 6th grade 7 months for comprehension, you may not be working on that with your fluencies. So for us, this is a very basic, but I just want you to see what can be done within the most basic way of looking. Again, 5 groups using 2 grade levels and see what it looks like. Okay? All right, so pick a table. I'm going to come around and give you the same.
Going to be easy.
And you have to come to consensus.
Okay, so we started by pulling out our highs and our lows. So our highs were reading at a level 8, and our lows were reading at a level 4. And then we looked and we said, okay, wait, let's just do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we were able to create 5 groups with some mixing of grade levels in these 3 groups. These 3 groups. And then realized that there were some kids who, on some days, depending on what the activity was, would be able to maybe be grouped 1 group higher or 1 group lower, depending on what the activity was. We talked a little bit about interest too, since it was reading. If a group was going to focus on mysteries and there was a kid who really was into mysteries, that they could switch groups because they would be able to work with kids who were reading at a higher level, but what the task wasn't necessarily about fluency or about decoding, because it was really about what does it take to write a mystery. And then also in our group, we talked about kids who might be overwhelmed by maybe being in this group, which we saw was a larger group than our other ones, right? So these were our best readers, but they would be overwhelmed, and that might be something where that's where that floating paraprofessional might come in, and now instead of there being 3 adults in the room helping these 5 groups, there would be 4. Did I leave anything out?
No, good job.
Right?
Very good job. Question for you. How many of you in your groups chose, when you had your 4th grade, to have that cluster all here together with your 4 reading at a 4.3, a 4.9, 4.2, 4.6? Did you all?
Oh, no. We changed our 4.9 to our 5 group.
Oh. We pushed our 4.9 to a 5. Why did you do this?
There's less levels between 4.9 and 5.1 than there were, I felt, for the child reading 4.9 down with the 4.2. There's bigger
Interesting.
gaps, I thought they were right.
Okay, so we found some opportunities in where you could push within. All right. How about the group over there? What did the group that you did? Same situation?
Yeah. Took the 4.9 and bumped it up.
All right. How did you handle, because I know you wanted to go down to 4 groups. Talk about what you did.
Well, good.
Well, we did, yeah, you guys did.
Go ahead.
So basically, we took the lower 3 in the 4.2 to 4.6. We felt that by putting just those 3 together, they could get more focus, more one-on-one attention. Then we had 4.9, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4. We grouped them together. Then we put the 6.3 through 7.2 together, figuring they're more typical. They could probably work on their own. and then we have all the 8s together. And maybe they're obviously at a higher level, they could bounce off of each other, maybe do some extra projects. They don't need as much attention, but it would allow the 2 teachers to focus, one primarily on the 4s, and then the other one could bounce back and forth between the 2.
And then by putting your 8s together, you know, that whoever's working with them, whether it be a tutor or whatever, is able to push them further, even though they are already at that far, instead of just keeping them level, it allows them to keep going.
So what'd you think of the activity as far as what that would look like in a classroom? Now, as I said, these are things, and one of the questions that came up, and I'm going to bring, because what happens during intervention? What happens? Our 3 students that right now, and I use this group, and we have our students right now that are receiving intervention. So these 3, which is on your pink slips, your I, your F, and your H, they are currently receiving intervention. Now, not only are they receiving intervention, but now they'll be able to work with a teacher within their classroom, getting additional concentrated support within that reading time. You've actually opened up more opportunities to support the students. Again, this is the opportunity to surround and push up. They don't stay at these levels. This is not frozen in time, which also means that some students are really going to take to this model, they'll go up. Those who don't, we start rearranging and recombining and looking at what the grouping looks like. This is constantly fluid. And this is, again, looking at opportunity. I think when I'm looking at all this, did it make you nervous when you had mixed colors together in a group?
Yeah, a bit. A bit.
A little bit. Talk to me about that.
Just don't want the kids picking on each other.
Okay.
I mean, if you have a 4th grader, I mean, a 5th grader mixed in with the 4th graders, you know, I don't want the other kids thinking it's slow or not. That's it.
And I think if it's something that was cemented in and that was always the group and they stayed through, I absolutely agree. If we're not looking at when we can push that child up and what is that next challenge and how do we make them feel good about the placement, but it is the goal that at some point we are not looking at the grade level, we're looking at the work that's being done, but you're absolutely right. It is going to be very much up to us because if we look at it as we're now labeling and putting them in groups, labeling them as such and such a grade, and they shouldn't be, why are you down here? Look at all of the other 5th graders up at that group. If we're using that comparison, we've done this very wrong. So I think it is about how fluid it's going to be, but that's an honest. And we have to be realistic about if those are the feelings, we also know that our students might have those feelings and we have to be respectful and responsive to those things. And I think in Julia left, but she asked, her question was, can we start next year, once we actually have MultiAge happening, can we have these meetings so we can also say, here are the things that are not working. This is not a drop something in and run away from it. This is about making certain we are giving all the support to make this model successful. And I can be successful on paper, it's meaningless. It needs to be successful for the students. So, we're not going to repeat for the math because you got the idea of how this works. And so as we get to the end, I will answer any questions that you have. One of the things, I know that there's, strangely, this is a topic of conversation all over Region 12. And I will tell you right now, there are rumors out there that people are saying that we're dismantling, bringing all of the Burnham teachers here, and that we're just going to turn this into the new Burnham. That is not accurate at all. There is conversations about who's going to be cut. There's conversations about who's getting moved. I've been told there are teachers who've been approached to be moved. And I said, who were they approached by? So to say to you right now, again, I'm going to be very specific, and I think people will feel a little bit better when we know the who is going to be involved in this design. We are going to be posting for the booth-free positions first. We want people to volunteer to be here. We want people who want to be in this model. In talking to the teachers union, there is a big interest in other schools to come join Booth in this multi-age adventure. They've actually asked if I can do an information session of what multi-age means before I put out the postings. So that way, everybody who's interested, who wants to be considered, will be, and we will look at what is the best chemistry to design Booth. Again, all teachers will have a position. We just don't know the where right now. I can't say with certainty, and I can say in which position. But the part that I'm very proud of is that as we go into this adventure, that there is no layoffs that need to happen because we're making this change. Questions that you have, clarifying conversations that I can do. Carol.
I just want to respond to your concern because I totally hear it.
Yeah.
So my kids went to a mixed preschool, right, multi-age preschool, and then came here. And so my son's in 6th grade now, so he finished here last year. And in his 6 years here, his class went from 7 to 12 kids. And off and on, the makeup was 2 boys and 5 girls. It ended up with 4 boys and 6 girls was how it, no, 8 girls. 8 girls. Was how, so he, it was, we joked with him, we're like, actually, you'll appreciate that, Will, when you get in high school, that you're going to know many more girls than your friends did. But the concern that there's the older, right, might pick on the younger. So that existed, especially in my son's class, although there were, at one point, there were 2 kids in my son's class that were literally an entire year older. Actually, both Bethany and I's kids had other kids. They were a whole calendar older than our kids. But that's, in some ways, that's what Will was stuck with, right? He was stuck with that peer group. And the only thing that made the tough social interactions work better is that we had kids move in and out every year. So like every year we're like, okay, new kid, that'll break it up a little bit, it'll be a little bit different. But he could never get away from some of those kids. And so did it force conversations at home between my husband and I and our son about everybody's different, everyone's families are different, everyone's got a different sense of humor. Would I have wished not to have those conversations in kindergarten? You bet. So for me, I look at this kind of grouping and I think, thank goodness, and I wish my son hadn't missed out on it. Like it was definitely a change from the preschool where he was multi-age coming here and being locked in. Some days he felt like he was locked in a classroom with people. It was incredibly hard. They were hard days because, not that anyone was mean, it wasn't mean, it was just differences, personal space kind of things. When math wasn't coming as quick, and so he was like, God, I'm just not as smart as, and then he had to go back the next day and realize, I'm just not as smart as, and he could never escape that. So I think this kind of model gives you that flexibility where if that social situation shows up again, and of course the flip side is my daughter's in the biggest class, right? She's got 16, and it's even Steven, boy and girl. And it happens sometimes too. I mean, she can tell you exactly, she could probably tell you who these kids are. That's just the kind of kid she is, right? She very much knows where everyone falls in terms of their reading and their math levels and who's can handle school and who struggles. So again, I think for her, it got to be great if she's got some more options, some more social options, some different people that she could be grouped with, because she shouldn't know what everyone's reading and math level is, right? I mean, I don't know why she does, but she does. She pays attention to that kind of stuff, and this will open it up for her so that she will have, it'll be mixed up. She won't always be working with the same kids, because we all have the same reading score. Okay, honey. So, I guess my point is it can happen anywhere, but this is going to offer some flexibility so that
If it was happening with my son would have gotten some space. Some elbow room, not have felt the same way every time he came in and had to do like the math sprints. So.
But again, all of this is about our attention to the details. I don't disagree. We can't treat every kid the same.
And I think what Kara was talking about earlier with their design with the, like the mystery book or whatnot, you know, this isn't set in stone. When you know, there's an interest to a certain kid, they're going, you know, they may go to a higher level because it's interesting to them, you know, and they're gonna actually perform better because it's something they're interested in. And they go back to something else and, you know, they're gonna go forward maybe to the next group, but not all the time. So I think it's gonna be up to the people that are in the classrooms that are gonna be kind of shuffling occasionally.
You're absolutely right. And you know, you take something that's of high interest, and if you have a student who is a struggling reader, but it's a high interest book, you're going to try to push them on that day. You're going to make certain that they're not sitting at what is considered the lower level. Where can I push them? And how do I give them the supports? And that should be what the reading teacher and the classroom teacher are starting to look at. How do I give them supports? Everything should be, what is the push point we can give the children and give them that opportunity? Again, these should not be set in stone, and I think that's one of the conversations. Sometimes we create a caste system because we don't have more opportunities to have flexible grouping. And this allows us to have some of those opportunities. So, again, these are not the only times that we can have these conversations. We welcome the opportunity to talk about, and if there's your specific child and you want to talk about some of the concerns, I am open to any phone call. We can have coffee. Let's talk, let's go through. We have 2 more of these presentations. They are not designed, in my mind, to be a let me convince you. Those are the times in which we talk about your child, and at some point, if I have to design something differently, this is still generic. What we do for your child should be individualized. And those are the things in which when you need to have those conversations of what does that actually look like, we want to be there to answer that question. Anything else people want to clear up tonight or have a conversation? All right. Well, I thank you all for your time and learning with us and continuing to grow. And the next presentation, I can tell you just as a point of reference, on Monday, I do present at 6:30 my budget to the Board of Education. So that is where we are going to be, again, pointing out that it is looking to be multi-aged at booth. So that will be the conversation with the board. So I don't want to mislead. I want to give everybody the opportunity and the understanding that that is the date in which we're moving forward. And then from there, we will have the next conversation at booth. Again, I believe it's on the 12th. Thank you. And again, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Megan, what time is the Board of Ed meeting?
6:30 is the budget meeting. The regular board meeting is at 7.